Today we're going to talk about the lighting on films. There are two very important elements on lighting: the luminosity and the color temperature. The luminosity is the intensity of the light you use to create your scene. With natural light in a very bright day or inside of a very dark scene, our eyes allow us to adapt quickly to the changes of intensity and color temperature. So it's something that we don't see as clear, but still we have to understand these concepts in order to create our setup of lighting. When we talk about intensity of light, we discuss that it could be like something very bright, something very dim. This in photography is represented by the iris. If we have a lot of light, the iris will close, very small, and when we have very dim light, the iris will open to get the most light into the sensor of your camera. These changes on the iris will create an effect on the focus as well. With a very wide open iris, the area that will be in focus will be one area, and the area behind or in front will be more out of focus. When we have a very small iris, we will have more depth of field. These changes on the iris in most cameras are known as the f-stops, going from 2.8 or sometimes 1.4 for the very open iris to 22 and sometimes 32 for a very small iris. You can design your lighting according to what you want to create on your film. For a cinematic look, it's recommended to have a very shallow depth of field. Try to mimic our eyes can see. We have a range. Our eyes pay more attention to a specific area while the other areas are out of focus. In order to mimic that natural way of seeing of the humans, it's recommended to have a very shallow depth of field. So that way the focus is concentrated in one area of the frame. The other element is the color temperature. The color temperature is measured in Kelvin degrees. It goes from about 5600 to 3200. The color temperature is also something that our eyes adapt really fast and is more or less the equivalent of sunset being very warm and a morning light, which is very white. We use tungsten light, which is most of our house bulbs or sometimes in the street bulbs, 32K, very yellow, reddish tone. So these changes you can put in your settings, but also you can use creatively to create a scene. For example, if you want to do a very warm scenario, you can keep the camera reading daylight and then lit it with tungsten light. So that will create, you will see the colors are really warm and rich. Professional cameras today, they give us options how we can set up the light according to our light setup or according of our creative ideas, because you can combine. I have had scenarios where I wanted to have a twilight feeling or a very early morning or very almost nighttime with a blue light, and we shot it in daylight, and we just changed the color temperature in the camera to read as if it was a tungsten light, so everything looks blue. Another element is the ISO. The ISO is the sensibility of your frame from 100 ISO to up to 3200 or even more. The lower the ISO, the less sensitive is the film, and the higher the more sensitive. It's the design of lighting is very interesting. I think that is a personal taste of how you want to lit things. And to me, it's a lot about practicing. I personally love natural light. Daytime or nighttime, we try to adapt to the light that we have, whether we can use more sensibility on the ISO combined with the f-stop that is larger, or more open or more closed, depending on what we want for the depth of field. And then on top of that, we add the coloring, and also you can use gels. Here are some examples of what you can do with working with color temperature. This scene was daytime and it was shot as if the light was tungsten light, so everything looks bluer. On this scene, we have available light, and the light was mostly tungsten lights, which was the light that was available on the street, and we kept the camera with the sensibility of daylight. So that means that all the colors look very warm and very orangey. In this example, we adapted the lens with a very wide, open f-stop, so the depth of field makes you focus more on what is in front of you. And in this case, we had a very tiny f-stop because we wanted everything to be on focus. Play and experiment until you know what is going to be your style, what do you want to do, and how do you want to express your art. On the next episode, we will talk about different types of light settings that we use on specific cases.